Welcome to the Michigan Runner Show. Join us each time as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great sport.
Hi, we have one of the legends of Michigan running with us, and it's Jeannie Bocci. Jeannie, it's so exciting to be talking to you about running. We've just been talking a little bit about your race walking career, but you really have a lot of stories to tell about running as well. Which came first, the running or the walking?
I was a runner before the walking, but I did start race walking in 64. Okay. Same year I started running. No, actually I started running in 63 with Jerry.
So if you're training for a race, and it's a race walk race, and if you're training for a running race, what's the difference? Do you mix it up or do you focus on one instead of the other?
I'd like to focus on the marathon training. Most of our marathon runs were done all running, even the 20-milers. But when I moved up to, I had this fetish, I had to do a 50-miler and a 100K. I did a 100K race walking. I have that record. I forgot that. Anyway, with running, the longer distance. And I recommend this now to all the women who are trying to break records, unless you're a sub 3-hour marathoner, like 250 marathoner, then you're only going to be doing track works.
Track runs.
And I would recommend that what worked for me to do a 7:02 50-miler was I would run 5 miles or 4 miles, and then I would race walk almost the same pace that I was running, though. So I would then race walk for the next half mile to a mile in those 40-milers. And that's what I did when I set that record for the 50-mile in Chicago. And I'd have to look up the year. And I would recommend that even when these new runners are coming out and they want to do the free press marathon, that they should mix it up. They should run and then take maybe 1 or 2 minutes and actually use a race walking style so you're still getting that aerobic benefit. And I think that's a salvation, on your body and your legs. And it was funny, when I did Chicago, I started, and the guys that were running said, "Oh, is this your first 50?" I said, "Yes." And said, "You're doing a pretty good pace. You're doing 3:30. I says, very politely, I says, "Yeah, I know what I'm doing." But then at the turnaround, we had to come back against the wind on the lake in Chicago. Jerry was there with sweat pads and another shirt. Now what are you doing? I says, "I'm going to get dressed and run against the wind."
Okay.
So every 5 miles, I changed my gear so I was well dressed when I was going against the wind. I'm sorry for the noise.
So did Jerry have it for you at certain spots? Is that how it worked?
5-mile mark.
Okay.
5 mile and 5 mile.
Wow, that's serious gear changing. I've never heard about that. Yeah.
Windy day, though. I wouldn't have done it if it was not that windy, but you have to look at the weather, too, before you start those.
That's really amazing.
Well, what happened in the group I was running with at 41 miles said, "Guess what? We all just understand why you were walking, and go ahead." And they finished like a half an hour, 45 minutes after me. We had another 9 miles to go.
Oh, wow.
Because you do hit the wall.
Well, so a lot of us basically tackle marathon by taking walking breaks, but the difference that you're doing is taking race walking breaks.
Yeah, you want to.
Yeah.
I don't want you street walk like you're shopping when you're doing the training. You want to walk at a brisk pace. So, and if you don't know how, then find somebody to show you the technique. I mean, they're not judging you anyway in a race when you're running it. And they don't care how you walk. But the walking technique assists or helps you to go faster. That's the whole purpose of the heel toe. It is so you're not running in bent knee, but the whole purpose is to get you to go faster.
And it really does help save those knees.
I think we use our upper body more race walking than we do running.
Oh, okay.
because you're always using those hands to propel yourself.
Sure. I'll have to think about
It's like a sprinter. You know how you tell your sprinters when you're coaching, get those knees up, use those arms, pump those arms. Well, that's you're using your whole body when you're race walking. I think it's a lot harder to race walk than it is to run. Running is natural.
Yeah, but race walking,
It's a
takes
tech.
practice to learn that technique.
It's a technique sport, just like if I was a gymnast, which I.
Well, so in 1978, you were the first Michigan woman to finish the Boston Marathon.
72.
72? Okay.
1973.
Okay.
I wanted to go in 72 because I was in good shape, and my husband said, because back then you could get a Boston Marathon better through the American Medical Association, and I was working for a dentist then. And of course, the other fellows that I trained with, they said, "Oh, Jeannie, come on, we'll even pay for your race number, because it was a little higher. Maybe back those days it was 100 because it donated to the American Medical Association." And he said, "No, you're not going. You're not going until you train for it." And he was right. So I trained my fanny off for the next whole year. That's when I got into really marathon 60, 90-mile weeks.
Did you run the whole race or take walking breaks?
My first Boston, I don't think I took walking breaks
Okay.
in the marathon.
Okay.
Not with that time. You had to qualify in 3:30. I did one in Detroit, and I was 3:31. So the next week, we drove out to Beltsville, Maryland, and did it. And that's when that was the legal year, wasn't it? 1973 when they allowed women legally to compete. And Kathy Schweitzer was there. So she talked me into she had this beautiful, cute little outfit. So I came home and made a tennis skirt with red rickrack. And so my first Boston, I got a tennis skirt with red rickrack in my ponytails. And it was a tough, the hills in Boston, we do have a few hills here that my group would get me on 5 days a week. We would go up and down the hills in Grosse Pointe in the farms there.
And it's those downhills that are the killer, right?
Yeah. And Boston, I was pretty pleased with my time. I was, if I remember right, I finished 12th of the women.
Ooh, okay.
My first Boston.
Wow, that's
And
good.
I was
Feel
just
that.
over 3:30. I don't, without knowing the time. And I've done, because you had to qualify at least 6 Bostons. And then the last Boston we did, because we didn't include those in our 50 states. And I had to do Massachusetts. Jerry and I actually both race walked that one.
Okay.
And that would have been in the 80s, 90s.
So why couldn't you include?
Because we didn't include the marathons that we did prior to our goal of doing the 50 states. So
Tell us about the 50 states. That must have been what a saga. I mean, you have to make 50 trips.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's what kept the marriage going. It was Jerry's idea because my daughter always says, "You stepped on Dad's parade." And I said, "I'm not going to marathon without doing it with him." So we started, 99, and we finished in 2004.
Okay.
But we took our high-top van to everything except Hawaii. I think we flew to 2 other ones. And we would drive, because I taught, I had to be back to school Monday. We would drive all night Friday to get there. Race if it was a Saturday or Sunday, and then all the way back home. You could not take a day off. They wouldn't let you with your school contract. And where you're going to sleep, right? Well, the van, it was a full-size van with a nice, press the button, the bed, put your blankets on, go to a restaurant, have a nice pasta dinner, go and brush your teeth, get in the van, sleep, get up at 5:30 and start that marathon at 6 or 7, finish it, get back in the van. And I really need a shower, so we learned that you can go to truck stops. Yeah. And they're very clean. It's $3 a shower. Now sometimes we had to have hotel rooms, of course, but What other way to go, right? And we one time we did 3 on a weekend. We did one on Saturday, Sunday, and then Labor Day.
Oh, okay. So you saved a couple of trips that way. So you're basically getting your sightseeing in during the marathon.
Yes.
What are some of your favorites?
Well, my favorite for marathoning, I have to say, is the New York Marathon.
Okay.
We had to do that again too.
Of course.
and no, actually, we did a different one in New York. The New York Marathon, because it's the largest city, as far as I'm concerned, in the United States, and they closed down their city for runners and walkers. Yeah. It was, from a race administrative point, my eyes just, I was like a kid in a candy store when I did New York. I always choke up. And then sightseeing-wise, we did the Grand Canyon Marathon on an Indian reservation in Arizona, across from where all the tourists are. And my encyclopedia over there, what was the name of the reservation, Jerry? Wallapai. But that was another teary story, because at the spaghetti dinner, the first American Indian to make the Olympic team, Billy Mills.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes, was there, and he also gave me, when I won it, because I was over 60, and so I won my age category, my award. And I was like a little kid. I could not believe that. Here you were.
Well, Billy Mills is absolutely a memorable guy. You're not going to forget meeting him.
They still have that marathon, but not only because of that, but it was beautiful. You know, I took more pictures. We stopped taking more, Jerry and I, more pictures with the cell phone than I did racing.
I think you mentioned Rhode Island. Rhode Island doesn't have very many. The last one. Okay.
We were supposed to do a trail run, and we were partway there, and we had a horrible snowstorm. And I called ahead, and they said, no, we're still doing the race, because Jerry thought we should turn around. And we got there. We were in our van, too. So I got up in the morning, had to walk through snow. Anyway, we couldn't do the trail. They did a quick guess with a car, or however they measured out there, through their neighborhoods, that we didn't have to run in snow past our ankles.
It's an amazing thing to think about. And altogether, I think you've run almost 90 marathons?
No, only, I thought it was 86 or 89. I'd have to look at my sheet if I forget time.
That said 89.
Yeah, I think it's 89, yeah.
Yeah.
That includes the 50 states.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. But they're not all sub 3-hour marathons, that's for sure.
So, you've run Boston, you've run New York City, you've run all 50 states. What would you say the highlight of your running career has been?
Winning the New York Marathon, for one. Winning Disney. I won Disney, too.
Disney?
Yes. I was a 4:19 marathon, race walking.
Okay. Wow.
But I won my age group.
Yeah, Disney's fun.
It's a big marathon.
Yeah.
A
lot of people stop and take pictures with Mickey Mouse and Pluto.
I think the other highlight of running and walking is the camaraderie and your friendships. Mm-hmm. You know, the love of the friendships. You know, I love my husband. You know, I don't know how he puts up with me, but you know, it's sort of difficult there. But it's the friendships that you meet over the years. Like I said, we've got friends that I was marathon training, 35, 40 years ago. And we still get together once a year during the holidays for a gathering. Some of us aren't left anymore, but I really think it's the fun of traveling, seeing different states. We didn't, when we were off in the summer, and because I was off all summer and Jerry gets like 6 weeks or 8, we would go to all the national parks. So we've been to almost every national park. Okay. And that's another whole set of albums that we have of national park pictures.
That's one of the great things about being a teacher is having a few days off in the summer where you can travel.
Alaska.
Few days off in the summer.
We drove to Alaska.
You drove to Alaska?
We did a marathon on a Saturday in Port Angeles, Washington. It's at the tip of the Washington in the north area. We had 5 days to get to Anchorage. It took us 2.5 days to do the first 2,500 miles to get to. It took us. We made it to Anchorage with 1 hour to spare for our numbers. I was so angry. It was during the Afghanistan war. And I said, here we're spending all this money and they can't do the roads in Alaska for us. The Canadian roads were fine, but you had washouts that we were delayed 1, 2, 3 hours. There was nothing because you had to leave the trucks come one way. It was a one way. And I mean, I was in tears like the morning that we were supposed to make it, that we weren't going to make it in time.
As I recall, I was never actually there, but my members of my family traveled to Alaska, and they were kind of surprised that there are so few paved roads.
You're right. And that's how they were.
Yeah.
And because where they have heavy rains, they're washed out.
So, 50 states, 89 marathons altogether. Jeannie Bocci, you've really been around the states. Thank you so much for talking with us about your career.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you.